Hi, I'm Jaden Schuler, and over the course of this 7-video series, we are going to be teaching you how to play the bassoon from scratch. Whether you are a first-time student of music or you've been playing another instrument and just wanted to pick up the bassoon, this video series was designed for you so you can learn the fundamentals of bassoon playing in no time. Now, over the course of this series, I hope to not only teach you how to play the bassoon, but also give you the tools you need to be able to practice effectively on your own. In this first video, we'll be discussing everything you need to know before you pick up the instrument. And at the end of the video, we'll be making our first sounds, so exciting stuff. Well, let's get started. Now, before we get started, I want to briefly talk about breathing. As wind players, our breath is our greatest ally, but it can also be our greatest weakness if not done well. So therefore, it is very important to learn how to breathe well from the start. Now, I'm going to stand sideways so you can watch what's going on firsthand. When we breathe in, we want to breathe in from the bottom up. And believe it or not, the lowest part of our lungs is actually in our back. So when you guys breathe in, I want you to imagine that you're breathing in from your back all the way up your chest into your neck. So, I'll demonstrate. And again. Now, what people will often do their first time trying to breathe is they'll take a very shallow breath. And what I mean by that is they'll breathe from up here, take a very high breath. And you can hear a difference in sound, actually. I'll demonstrate a shallow breath, too. You can hear it's a little higher pitched. So we really want that low, nice and round breath all the way from the bottom. And you'll notice when we breathe in properly, our stomach also tends to pop out a little bit too as our diaphragm moves to make way for our expanding lungs. Now, with that said, let's get to handling the bassoon. All right, I have here my bassoon, and now we're going to talk about how to set one up. So, first things first, we need to talk about the smallest and yet one of the most important parts of the bassoon, the reed. I'll give you a close-up view. That's what these are. Now, these reeds are very fragile, and so when you guys handle them, I want you to be very careful so we don't break them. Now, in order to play the bassoon, these reeds need to be wet. So, what we normally do is we will take the reed and we'll put it in a container of water so that it can be fully submerged. In my case, I just have a plastic Tupperware container. It can be as simple as that. And we will set it aside until we finish setting up the bassoon. So, the first part we want to get out is our seat strap. That looks like this. It has a hook on one end, and it's just a leather, or sometimes it can be woven. And it's just a strap, and we sit on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this across our chair so that the hook side will be on our right when we're sitting down, like this. So as you can see, the hook is on my right side, and the other end of the strap is over here. And I am fully sitting with my weight on the strap. Now, what we'll get out next is our boot joint. That is this. It has 2 middle end caps, and it has 2 holes for other joints on this side. And we'll hold it this way. So, the second piece we want to get out is what is called the tenor joint, or the wing joint. It has 5 thumb keys on this side, and it has your tone holes on this side. Now, we want to hold it so that this curve, this is circular so that it can fit against the other piece, which we'll talk about later. We want it so that this curve is facing towards the inside of the bassoon when we put it in its hole. And the hole it goes in is the thinner of the two. Like so. And it is very important to be careful not to apply too much pressure while grabbing the instrument, or you can bend some of these rods. So we want to be very light but firm when we put together the instrument. Now, some bassoons will have a mark on the boot joint and the tenor joint to indicate what the angle should be, and when you put it there, it'll be right. However, if you don't have that, then you can just match up the concentric circles by eye, which is what I normally do. Now, let's be very careful and set the boot joint on the floor to rest on the floor. And let's grab the second of the two middle joints, the bass joint. So, like the tenor joint, this has two wooden ends. Mine are wrapped with thread. Sometimes they'll be wrapped with cork. And we have these 4 thumb keys on this side and 2 pinky keys on this side. So, again, being careful so as not to bend the metal rods, we want to put this in so that the thumb keys are on the same sides of each other. My bassoon has a small little spring hook right here that goes into a hole in the tenor joint to hold the bassoon better together. That can be a good indicator of if they're off or not. If you don't have one, don't worry, you can still put it together. It's not a big deal. Now, at this point, the bassoon looks like this. I want you guys to see that. This is the thumb key side, and you can see all 9 thumb keys. Last but not least, we have our bell. Now, you'll notice that on the bassoon as well as on the bell, where you can see where the last piece will go, we have this small little metal piece right here, as well as a matching metal piece on here. We want to get these to match up. So when we put together the bassoon, we'll put it so that they'll match up. And what this does is when we push one of our thumb keys, it will depress that key. Namely, this key. One last piece we need is the Bogel, sometimes called the crook. This goes right here all the way in. It is a common misconception for starting bassoonists, as other instruments have something like this, that you can pull the Bogel out if you want to become flatter or push it in if you want to become sharper. We do not do this on the bassoon because it can cause other issues and lower your tone quality. So we really want to push the Bogel all the way in when we play the bassoon. And what we want to do is match up this pad with this small pinhole on the side of the Bogel, just like this. So you can see right here we have the pad and the pinhole, and it covers it perfectly. Now, we simply take our hook and we hook it in to the boot joint. And boom, we have our bassoon. Now let's take our reed that was soaking earlier. I have mine right here. And we will put it on the Bogel. Now what we'll do is we'll adjust the bassoon up and down, depending on where the seat, by moving the seat strap to get it to come straight into our mouth. So right now you can see that the reed is at my chin, so my bassoon is too low. So what I do is I'll just move my seat strap to the left a little bit until when I bring the bassoon to my body, it just comes directly into my mouth. And there you go. You have your bassoon set up and ready to go. Alright, now that we have our bassoon set up, our reed soaked, and we're ready to go, let's start learning how to play some notes. So for a brief overview of the embouchure, which is a fancy word for how we're going to hold the reed in our mouth, we want to pretend like we're whistling on the reed. So you're going to just put it in your mouth and close the corners of your mouth around it. So other things to keep in mind are you want to drop your jaw and open up your throat if you can. Now you want your lips to be about halfway up the blade. So you can see there's a wire right here. You want your lips to be about here, to end right there, that is. So from the side it'll look like this. And you can see that my jaw is lowered and my throat is open. So let's put the reed back on the bassoon. For the note we'll play first, this is called open F by the way, we're going to put down our whisper key, which is the rightmost thumb key at the bottom, this one, with your left thumb. You're going to push that with your left thumb and hold it down. And for now, we are not going to have any other fingers. So although the majority of the bassoon will rest on the strap and against your leg, you do need to support this side with this part of your hand right here. So, like so, just so that you can press down that whisper key with your thumb and release it without having to worry about the bassoon moving too much. And we're going to take a nice deep breath like we practiced earlier. We're going to bring the bassoon to our mouth, form our embouchure around the reed, and release our air and blow. Now, to change notes, we will use different combinations of our fingers. So first, we're going to learn our first 4 notes, F, the open F we just learned being one of them. For our next note, we're going to put down our left pointer finger on the top tone hole. Now, it's important to note that the tone holes are actually holes that are bored into the bassoon and not these keys here. So we want our pointer finger to go right here. So holding down the whisper key from before as well as that first finger, we're going to do the same thing. Take a deep breath, put the reed in our mouth, and release our air. Now for our next note, we are going to take our left-hand middle finger and put it on the second lowest tone hole along with the first. So altogether we have our thumb depressed and our first 2 fingers depressed. And this is the D. Now the last note we're going to learn for now is the C. To play this note, we're just going to put our left hand ring finger down on that final tone hole there and do the same thing. If you're following along, congratulations, you've just made your first noises on the bassoon. We will talk much more in depth about the embouchure and tonguing in a future video, but for now, you are off to a great start. Alright, for the last topic of this video, we're going to be talking about how to take the bassoon apart safely. So first things first, we're going to unhook the bassoon from the seat strap, and being very careful, set it on the floor. It's important that we never hold the bassoon only by the middle part or by the bell, as the joints can actually come apart and the bottom of the bassoon will fall on the ground. So we always want to have at least one hand on the boot. And we're going to rest this against the floor carefully. Now, first things first, we're going to take off our reed and we're going to set it aside. Now for the rest of the bassoon, we're going to disassemble it in the reverse order that we put it together. So first we're going to be taking off our Bogel, being very careful not to bend it or apply too much pressure to it, as this is just a hollow piece of metal, so it's very fragile. And we're going to return it to our case. Next, we are going to take off our bell and return it to the case. Now, very important, don't forget this, if you have the kind of bassoon with this spring hook, you need to take this off next. So I just lift it up and turn it to rest on its platform so that the rod is no longer in the hole on the tenor joint. And now we're going to take off the bass joint and return it to our case. From here, it's very simple. We just remove the tenor joint, put it away, and last but not least, we put away our boot joint. If you've stuck with me this far, thank you so much, and I hope you're enjoying learning how to play the bassoon. We got lots more in store over the course of this video series, and I hope to see you there. Until next time.